My name is Loretta Vickery, 38 years old. The strangest anniversary party of my life began with champagne, candlelight, and my husband smiling at me like he had already buried me. Daniel Mercer sat across from me in a private dining room filled with 40 guests, family, friends, a few co-workers, people who had watched us build 12 years of marriage and believed we were celebrating another milestone. He looked relaxed, too relaxed. Beside the bar, Rebecca Collins kept checking her phone and glancing at him with a kind of excited cruelty she didn't even bother hiding. Rebecca was Daniel's ex-girlfriend, though she had spent years pretending she was only a close family friend. She was the kind of woman who never truly left a relationship. She just changed titles and waited for a new way back in. Daniel and I had been married for 12 years. No children by choice, or at least I thought it had been by choice. We had built a calm life, the kind other people praised because they only saw the outside. Inside, Rebecca had always been there, whispering into cracks before I even knew cracks existed. If Daniel and I argued about money, Rebecca somehow knew by morning. If we talked about moving, she had opinions. If I worked late, she told him I cared more about my career than my husband. She dressed her resentment up as concern, and Daniel, slowly, began listening. 6 months before that anniversary dinner, he changed. Not all at once. That would have been easier to confront. It happened in tiny movements. His phone started going face down whenever it buzzed. He began leaving rooms to answer calls. His guys' nights became 3 nights a week. Money disappeared from our joint savings in quiet little bites. $500 here, $700 there. Sometimes almost 1,000. When I asked, he kissed my forehead and said, "I'm investing in myself, Loretta. Online courses, career, growth." He said it so smoothly I almost believed him. Almost. The first real warning came 2 months before the party at his cousin's wedding. Rebecca got drunk on champagne and followed me onto the hotel terrace. She leaned against the railing, laughing at the lights below like they had told her a secret. "You know what's funny?" she said. "People think anniversaries mean forever." I smiled politely. "Sometimes they do." She turned her head toward me, eyes glassy but sharp underneath. "Sometimes anniversaries are endings." My stomach tightened. She moved closer and whispered, "Public accountability changes everything." I asked what she meant. Rebecca giggled, then said the sentence that changed my life. "Divorce papers are impossible to ignore when everyone is watching." The second it left her mouth, she froze. Then, she laughed too loudly and said she was joking. I laughed with her. I even touched her arm and said she'd had too much to drink. But inside, every part of me went cold. I didn't confront Daniel that night. I didn't accuse him. I went home, slept beside him, and started paying attention. The truth wasn't hard to find once I stopped trying to protect my own heart from it. I found a divorce attorney's business card tucked into his wallet, Holloway and Associates. Then I found appointment reminders, 3 consultations, and emails he had forgotten to delete. I found a lease application for an apartment starting the following month. Rebecca's name was listed as an emergency contact. Daniel wasn't unhappy and confused. He was preparing. They both were. And the center of their plan was a house. 8 years earlier, Daniel inherited his grandmother's old house. When he got it, it was barely livable. The roof leaked, the plumbing coughed rust, the kitchen looked like it had survived a small fire, and the electrical system was a lawsuit waiting to happen. Daniel wanted to sell it. He called it a money pit, a burden, something dead people leave behind to punish the living. I saw something else. I saw a family home that could be saved. So I saved it. I used nearly $80,000 from my father's life insurance, the last real gift he left me after he died. I spent weekends meeting contractors, nights comparing invoices, mornings sanding cabinets before work, new roof, new plumbing, full kitchen remodel, floors, paint, windows, 5 years of dust, stress, arguments, and sacrifice. By the end, The house had gone from being worth maybe $60,000 to nearly $280,000. We lived there for 3 years, then moved into our current home and rented the old one out for $2,200 a month. Because Daniel had inherited it, the title stayed in his name. The rent went into his personal account because, as he always said, it was family property. I accepted that because I thought marriage meant trust. After I discovered the divorce plan, I met with my own attorney. I expected her to tell me I had no claim. Instead, she looked through receipts, bank records, contractor invoices, photos, and messages, then said, "Loretta, you have a strong case. The increase in value came largely from your money and labor. I could fight for compensation or partial ownership in the divorce, but court would be expensive, ugly, and slow, so I chose a cleaner method." 2 weeks before our anniversary, I sat across from Daniel at dinner and said I wanted to protect our assets. I told him that because I was self-employed, transferring the rental property into my name could help with tax deductions and accounting. In exchange, I offered to transfer our current house fully into his name. His eyes changed immediately. Our current home was worth about $350,000, with only $100,000 left on the mortgage. The rental was worth less, but had no mortgage. Daniel thought he was winning. Rebecca must have thought so too, because he signed within days. His lawyer reviewed everything. Every document was notarized. Every filing was recorded with the county 5 days before our anniversary. So when Rebecca stood up halfway through dinner, I was ready. She tapped her glass with a fork, smiling like an actress stepping into her best scene. "I have something special for the happy couple," she announced. Daniel lowered his eyes, pretending embarrassment, but I saw the corner of his mouth twitch. Rebecca walked toward me, holding a white envelope. "On behalf of someone who deserves a much better future," she said, placing it in front of me, "consider yourself served." The room went silent. I opened the envelope slowly. Divorce papers. Exactly as expected. Rebecca folded her arms, waiting for tears. Daniel watched me like he wanted to memorize my humiliation. I laughed. Not loudly, not wildly, just one small, honest laugh. "Perfect timing," I said. Then I reached into my handbag and pulled out my own envelope. I slid it across the table to Daniel. I brought papers, too. He opened it with the confidence of a man who still believed he controlled the ending. Then his face drained white. Rebecca leaned over his shoulder. "What is it?" Daniel didn't answer. "I did. Those are the recorded deeds for your grandmother's rental house," I said clearly, so every guest could hear. "The house you signed over to me last week. For tax purposes. Remember?" Rebecca snatched the papers, scanning every signature, every stamp, every notarized page. "This can't be legal," she hissed. "You tricked him." I looked at Daniel. "Did I?" He had his own lawyer review the transfer. He signed willingly. Just like he willingly planned to serve me divorce papers at our anniversary party. No one moved. Daniel's mother slowly stood. "What divorce papers?" And for the first time that night, Daniel looked genuinely afraid. For several long seconds, nobody in the room said a word. The soft music playing through the restaurant speakers suddenly felt absurd. A waiter carrying a tray of champagne froze beside the doorway, uncertain whether to continue serving drinks or quietly disappear. Every guest stared at Daniel, then at Rebecca, then back at me. Daniel's lips moved, but no sound came out. Rebecca recovered first. "This is ridiculous," she snapped, waving the property deeds in the air. Loretta manipulated him into signing these. I folded the divorce papers Rebecca had proudly handed me and placed them neatly beside my wine glass. "Manipulated?" I asked calmly. I looked around the room before continuing. Daniel hired his own attorney. His attorney reviewed every page. They recommended signing. The county accepted the transfer. So please explain exactly who manipulated whom. Rebecca's face flushed crimson. "You lied about tax purposes." I said transferring the property would protect our assets. I smiled faintly. It did. My assets. Daniel finally found his voice. Loretta, please. No. My answer was quiet but firm. For 6 months you lied every single day. You secretly met with divorce lawyers. You rented an apartment. You built an exit fund. And tonight, I lifted the envelope Rebecca had delivered. You plan to humiliate me in front of everyone we know. Daniel's mother slowly reached for the divorce papers. What is this? She looked from one page to another before turning toward her son. Daniel, you were divorcing your wife? He lowered his head. Rebecca stepped in immediately. They've both been unhappy. This was supposed to be private. I laughed softly. Private? You invited 40 people. You stood up in the middle of dinner. You literally announced, consider yourself served. Tell everyone again how private this was supposed to be. A few guests exchanged uncomfortable looks. Several of Daniel's co-workers quietly shook their heads. His father, Raymond, rubbed his forehead. I don't understand. When did all this start? Neither Daniel nor Rebecca answered. Instead, my mother slowly stood from the other side of the table. If we're sharing surprises tonight. She turned toward the guests. I think everyone deserves to know where the renovation money came from. The room fell silent again. My late husband passed away 12 years ago. The $80,000 Loretta invested into Daniel's grandmother's house came entirely from his life insurance. She paused. That wasn't spare money. That was the last thing her father left her. Every person in the room looked at Daniel. You knew that, my mother continued. You watched my daughter spend 5 years rebuilding that house. You watched her spend weekends covered in dust while you promised you'd grow old together, and your thank you. She pointed toward the divorce papers, was planning to hand her these in front of everyone. Nobody defended him. Rebecca looked down. Daniel couldn't even meet his mother's eyes. Then my mother added one final sentence. Oh, and since honesty seems fashionable tonight, I also contributed $3,000 toward this anniversary party because Daniel said money was tight. She smiled sadly. So technically, I helped pay for the dinner where my daughter was supposed to be publicly humiliated. The silence shattered. People began whispering. Daniel's cousin looked disgusted. One of his uncles muttered, "You've got to be kidding me." A co-worker, sitting near the end of the table, quietly raised his glass toward me. Another followed. Within minutes, the atmosphere had completely changed. Instead of watching my marriage collapse, everyone was watching Daniel's deception collapse. Rebecca grabbed Daniel's arm. We're leaving. Neither waited for dessert. Neither looked back. They hurried out of the restaurant while dozens of stunned guests watched them disappear through the lobby doors. Ironically, the anniversary party continued. Friends gathered around me. Several apologized for never noticing Daniel's gradual change. One coworker disappeared to his car before returning with an expensive bottle of whiskey. We're not letting tonight end the way they planned. The restaurant staff stayed open nearly 2 extra hours. What had been designed as my public humiliation somehow became the beginning of my freedom. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. 67 unread messages. 23 missed calls. Daniel had gone through every stage imaginable. How could you do this? You tricked me. That house belongs to my grandmother. Then, can we please talk? This isn't what I wanted. Finally, I'm begging you. I read every message. Then I deleted them. I replied exactly once. From this moment forward, all communication goes through our lawyers. You started this process. I'm simply finishing it. Then I blocked his number. Unfortunately, Rebecca wasn't nearly as willing to stop. Within 48 hours, she launched an aggressive social media campaign. According to her posts, I had manipulated a loving husband into signing away his inheritance. She forgot to mention the anniversary ambush. She forgot the divorce papers. She forgot the audience. Selective memory is a convenient thing. She even called my office, demanding my employer fire me because I was supposedly financially abusive. She made one enormous mistake. My department director had attended the anniversary dinner. He calmly told her he had witnessed the entire event. "If you contact this company again," he warned, "I'll report you for harassment." She hung up immediately. 3 days later, Daniel arrived outside my office with his new attorney. Fortunately, my lawyer joined by video conference within minutes. Daniel's attorney spoke confidently. "My client believes the property transfer was signed under false pretenses." My attorney calmly opened a folder. "We have emails from Mr. Mercer's previous attorney." She displayed one message. "This transfer appears advantageous for my client. I recommend proceeding." The attorney changed tactics. My client wasn't emotionally capable of understanding what he signed. My attorney smiled. Was he emotionally capable of secretly preparing divorce papers for an anniversary party? Silence. She continued, "We also possess evidence showing months of divorce planning, apartment hunting, attorney consultations, and social media posts announcing a public surprise." Daniel finally looked at me. "That house means everything to me." His voice cracked. "It's all I have left from my grandmother." I slowly placed another stack of papers onto the conference table. "They're your text messages." He frowned. One after another, his own words stared back at him. "Sell the place. It's falling apart. It's a money pit. I hate dealing with that house." I looked directly into his eyes. "You only remembered your grandmother after the property no longer belonged to you." His attorney quietly closed the file. She already knew the argument was over. Then she asked one final question. "What exactly do you want, Mrs. Vickery?" "I want the divorce Daniel spent 8 months preparing. A clean break, no lies, no rewritten history, and no more games." That afternoon, the legal battle truly began. Neither Daniel nor Rebecca realized their biggest mistakes were still ahead. The weeks that followed proved something I'd never fully understood before. Some people don't stop when they lose. They simply become more reckless. Daniel and Rebecca convinced themselves that if they repeated the same lie often enough, people would eventually believe it. They told mutual friends I'd manipulated Daniel for months. According to them, I had carefully planned to steal his inheritance while pretending to be a devoted wife. Conveniently, they never mentioned the anniversary dinner. They never mentioned Rebecca proudly handing me divorce papers in front of 40 witnesses. Some mutual friends believed their version. A few quietly disappeared from my life. That hurt more than I expected. But the people who had actually attended the party never doubted what they had seen. They knew exactly who had planned the humiliation and exactly who had simply refused to become its victim. Then, Rebecca made the biggest mistake of her life. Instead of leaving the rental property alone, she drove there one afternoon and knocked on the tenant's door. The tenants, Dorothy and Eugene, had rented the house for nearly 3 years. They were kind, retired, and treated the property with more care than many owners would. Rebecca introduced herself and announced that I had stolen the house through fraud. "You'll need to start paying rent to Daniel again," she confidently told them. "The transfer is illegal and will be reversed soon." Fortunately, Dorothy didn't believe strangers making legal announcements on her porch. She called me immediately. Completely confused, she asked whether everything was all right. I emailed her the officially recorded deed within minutes. After reading it, she sounded genuinely embarrassed. I can't believe she tried that. Neither could I. My attorney immediately sent Rebecca a formal cease and desist letter ordering her to stop interfering with my property or my tenants. She ignored it. Less than 24 hours later, Rebecca returned. This time, she wasn't alone. Daniel came with her. According to security footage later recovered from a neighbor's cameras, Rebecca carried a toolbox while Daniel repeatedly tried unlocking the front door. When that failed, Rebecca attempted changing the locks herself. Dorothy looked outside, saw strangers working on the door, and immediately called 911. Police officers arrived before either of them managed to get inside. Daniel kept insisting the house belonged to him. The responding officer calmly checked the county records. It didn't. Not anymore. Both Daniel and Rebecca were arrested for attempted breaking and entering and criminal trespass. That single afternoon destroyed nearly every argument they'd been trying to build. Daniel's parents were devastated. A few days later, Raymond called me. His voice sounded 20 years older. "Loretta, I'm sorry. I should have stopped this much sooner." He admitted something that finally explained Rebecca's obsession. After her own divorce several years earlier, Rebecca had received almost nothing because of a strict prenuptial agreement. Her marriage had ended after she cheated on her husband with her personal trainer. Since then, she had blamed every man except herself. She convinced Daniel that every marriage ends with someone taking advantage of someone else, Raymond admitted quietly. I didn't realize how deeply she'd poisoned him. Meanwhile, I hired a professional property management company. I wanted absolutely no reason for Daniel or Rebecca to claim I was interfering with tenants or mishandling the property. During their first inspection, they discovered something unexpected. The garage door had fresh damage. Sections of the backyard fence had been broken. Repair estimates totaled almost $3,000. Security cameras revealed exactly when it happened. After police had released them on the day of the arrest, Rebecca had returned alone. She tried entering through the backyard. Unable to get inside, she damaged the fence and garage in frustration. Those recordings became additional evidence. My attorney amended the civil case. Rebecca now faced criminal trespass, attempted unlawful entry, and destruction of property. Reality finally reached Daniel. His attorney contacted mine requesting settlement discussions. "The criminal charges are destroying Rebecca's future," she explained. "And Daniel's mental health has deteriorated significantly." I listened quietly before answering. "My conditions are simple. First, the divorce proceeds exactly as Daniel originally filed it. Second, there will be absolutely no challenge to the rental property's ownership. Third, Daniel keeps the marital home exactly as we transferred it. Fourth, no alimony from either side. Fifth, Rebecca pays every dollar of the property damage. Sixth, both of them stay away from me, my home, my workplace, and the rental property. And finally, I want a signed, written acknowledgement confirming the property transfer was legal, voluntary, and completed with independent legal counsel." Their attorneys tried negotiating, removing one condition, changing another. I refused every request. For the first time in months, I held every card. A few weeks later, Daniel signed. The divorce hearing lasted less than 20 minutes. Uncontested. Clean. Final. He tried several times to catch my eye across the courtroom. I never looked up. There was nothing left to say. Rebecca eventually accepted a plea agreement, 6 months of probation, $3,000 in restitution, mandatory payment for the property damage, a criminal record. Most importantly, a restraining order prohibited her from coming within 500 feet of me or the rental property. I thought that would be the end. I was wrong. About a month later, Raymond asked if we could meet for coffee. He looked exhausted. "I wanted you to hear this from me." He and his wife had rewritten their wills. Rebecca inherited nothing. Daniel's inheritance was drastically reduced. The remaining portion of the estate would eventually go to charity. "You are the daughter-in-law we hoped for," Raymond said quietly. "I'm sorry my son couldn't appreciate what he had." Those words meant more than I expected. A week after that, my attorney forwarded me an envelope. Inside wasn't another legal document. It was a letter from Daniel. He wrote about the first apartment we rented, our road trips, the nights we planned our future. He admitted Rebecca had spent months convincing him that he deserved more, that our anniversary ambush would make him feel powerful, that publicly embarrassing me would somehow make starting over easier. Then came the sentence that mattered most. "I lied to your face for 8 months, and I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me." I folded the letter, placed it back inside the envelope, and never replied. Life moved forward. The rental property remained fully occupied. After improvements and market adjustments, I increased the rent by $200. Even then, it remained below comparable properties. Dorothy and Eugene happily renewed their lease. The additional income strengthened my finances enough that my financial advisor estimated I could retire nearly 5 years earlier than planned. Daniel wasn't doing nearly as well. The house he insisted on keeping still carried a substantial mortgage. Without my income, the monthly payments became difficult. His parents helped temporarily but made it clear the support wouldn't last forever. Rebecca moved back into her parents' house after violating her own lease because of repeated complaints from neighbors. One evening, months after the divorce was finalized, I received a text from an unfamiliar number. It was Daniel using a friend's phone. "I know you'll block this too. I just need you to know losing you was the biggest mistake of my life. Rebecca poisoned everything good we had. I'm finally in therapy. I'm sorry. I blocked the number without replying. People occasionally ask whether I regret what happened. I do. I regret trusting someone who had already stopped being honest. I regret ignoring warning signs because I believed love could solve everything. But protecting myself? Not for a single second." Daniel and Rebecca wanted an audience. They wanted to humiliate me publicly. They wanted me to become the villain in their story while they walked away with the future I had helped build. Instead, they exposed themselves. Every document was legal. Every signature was voluntary. Every consequence came from their own choices. Today, I'm dating again. Nothing serious yet. Whenever people hear what happened, they usually ask the same question. Do you think karma is real? I smile every time. Because in my case, karma wasn't magic. It was reviewed by attorneys, notarized, recorded, and permanently filed with the county clerk.